All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the State of the League, the podcast where I, Jack, aka Jokicjoestar, am taking a look at the upcoming NBA season through the lens of the fans of each NBA franchise. And today, I'm happy to be joined by Nate from the Hoopstemple Podcast to discuss a little bit about the Toronto Raptors. Nate, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling a little bit guilty, like I might have lied my way to get onto this podcast, but I'm here. I tricked you. It works. I'm here.
Well, you got to fake it till you make it. I'm not too worried about being lied to because nothing. I mean, I'm a podcast host. It's not the most serious job in the world at the end of the day. So as long as we have fun and the listeners learn a little bit about, I don't know, the power of friendship or what have you, we've done our job. So yeah, leading in to this question number one I got for you. How are you feeling about where the Toronto Raptors are currently at as a franchise?
This hasn't been my favorite place that the Raptors have been in, but it's actually a fairly familiar place. And so I should say, like, if you know me on the internet, I'm a Lakers fan first and foremost. But back when I got my first NBA video game, I got really good at it. It was NBA Courtside with Kobe on the cover. It might have been NBA Courtside 2. This is back in like 98, 2000, whatever. And so my friends banned me from playing with the Lakers. They said I had to pick a bottom five team to play with, and the Raptors were just hot garbage. So I played with the Raptors, and they had Vince, and they had T Mac, and they had Damon Stoudemire and Del Curry, and it was a really fun video game team.
Damn,
So,
that's a fun team. Looking back on it a little bit, I mean, I know
oh
T
yeah,
Mac hadn't really hit his stride, but you throw Del Curry in there with Vince and everybody, and I don't know, some recognizable names in retrospect, stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. So they've always been my East Coast team. I've got some people have a like NBA team and a college team. I have a West Coast team and an East Coast team. So,
Totally
um,
valid. Absolutely, because I mean they're not going to fight until they get to the finals, and I don't know if that's the Lakers are one thing. I don't know if this is the year the Raptors really make their finals run in the postseason. Um,
yeah,
Looking
yeah.
at the bullets that I have as far as like where the Raptors are currently at as a franchise, I don't like this is a team that like I don't want to make my mind up on right now because I feel like if I firmly put my foot into one camp of like, they have the pieces to be better than they look on paper, or this team is gonna like underachieve and they need to sell high on a couple of these guys who are always in trade talks. If I firmly cement myself into one of those, the other feels like it's probably going to come true. I would love to like reevaluate where they're at 4 months from now because it feels like so much is up in the air in terms of like I'm a big Pascal Siakam believer and I'm a big I don't know if I'm a Scotty Barnes believer, but I feel like people were too hard on him last year. And I
Mhm.
just think they did probably get worse in terms of like offseason moves or whatever, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think they could still end up being better than 500 next year, like in a
Ooh.
perfect world. I don't know if that's like the spiciest take on the planet, but simultaneously, I feel like they're kind of close to no man's land in the sense that like if they just keep pushing this core that they have and they don't commit to like really tanking a year or two and getting some nice young talent around Scotty and moving out of the Siakam era or selling high on guys to get around Siakam to try to be really competitive right now, nothing is going to happen. This roster, for as like better than 500 is their ceiling, I feel like is the regular season. I don't think they're going to be a consequential team in the postseason, regardless of like how much they overachieve in that regard.
Well, I know you sent me 6 questions. I don't know how straightforward you want to go, 1 through 6, but I've been pushing the idea of a trade for them. Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
jump to that trade talk?
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally fine. We can go right there.
Perfect. Dame Lillard for Scotty
Huh.
Barnes.
Okay. That's one I had not considered was Toronto as a landing place for him. Damian Lillard for Scotty Barnes.
Yep. I know Toronto was hesitant to pull the trigger on Scotty for Durant. I think that was also because it was going to be Scotty plus other things. I do think a Scotty for Lillard, maybe a couple extra picks, might happen. I I've kind of fallen a little bit less in love with Scotty Barnes because I don't know that I see him as a two guard. I don't know that I could see him as the future point Scotty. The idea that he could be, your playmaker on offense and super switchable defender on defense. Like I think he is kind of caught in no man's land where he's good at a lot of different things, but not great at any one thing. And I kind of hope the Raptors come to that same realization and say, all right, let's move him while there's a superstar on the market that fits the rest of our team. Because if you make the Lillard trade and then you run out a lineup of Lillard, Gary Trent, OG, Pascal, and Pirtle, that's a good team. That
That's a
could
quality
compete.
team in the East. Damn, I actually don't mind that at all. I feel like everybody's kind of behind the scenes been cooking up their own little fan fiction Damian Lillard trades. My
Hmm.
personal one, I've been pushing it for a while. It would see Embiid get sent to Portland, but
Oh.
Damian Lillard ending up in Toronto, and I like that because I feel like the way you touched on Scotty Barnes being good at a variety of different things without really excelling at one thing super well. Like he's a quality defender. I think
Hmm.
that's like what he could really hang his hat on. But he would be a really good guy if you were to be able to draft someone like Scoot Henderson. It would rock to have Scotty Barnes as like your third best player in a core
Yep.
like that. Operating with him as like your franchise guy moving forward, essentially, that would really intimidate me if I was a Raptors fan for the future post Pascal Siakam era. Just because I'm like, if you build like a full team around Scotty, as it stands right now, maybe he takes a huge step in this season as like a third year player now, which isn't the most unrealistic thing in the world.
Hmm.
But like what he showed the past 2 years, I don't really think he's going to be that caliber of player that you can be like, all right, we're going to push all our chips in to get supplemental talent around you, and we're going to try to be as good as possible. But with someone like Scoot Henderson, who could take especially a lot of the offensive load off Scotty and just kind of let him operate in the like cracks that he leaves in the offense where you can like, I don't know, catch the ball, make one more pass to a smart shot or something like that, or get like an open door back cut, something like that. I think Scotty Barnes would fit that role really nicely. So I don't really hate that trade at all. It is surprising though, and there's so much with Damian Lillard mentally, not in the sense that he's like, oh, he's soft or whatever, but just in the sense that like you don't really know what he's thinking, where it seems like he only wants to play for Miami right now, although the leagues like don't say that anymore. So I don't know, it's tricky in that regard.
I mean, if you line up the two cities on paper, though, what is the difference between Toronto and Miami? They are both Eastern. They are both big cities, metropolises. The weather exists
Oh
in both
yeah,
those places. Practically the
it's
same
pretty
spot.
much Los Angeles in both of them. You know, like they're
Yeah.
huge free agent destinations, things like that. I don't know. The thing, not to just like point to Damian Lillard immediately, but like one of the things I always think about with this situation and him is just like for the longest time, it didn't seem like he wanted to demand out. It seemed like he would just be happy getting like competent help around
Hmm.
him. And so, does his demeanor completely change? I feel like it would if he got somebody like Embiid, how I mentioned previously. Does his demeanor change if he gets Gary Trent and Pascal Siakam? I'm not as like solid on that, but it would be interesting to think about, definitely.
So I think with like 90% of the teams in the league, they care about that. But Masai Ujiri is the one that pulled the trigger on the Kawhi Leonard trade when Kawhi is like, no, I do not want to go to Toronto. I will not report to Toronto. Like he had his list, and Masai was like, cool, you're under contract. We're trading for you. We're gonna make this work. Now maybe with Lillard having a longer term deal, he's not like I'll play nice for a year, but I'll actually fight this more. I don't know. I think Masai is maybe one of the only GMs in the league that would go against a player's wishes and say we're going for you anyways. We think you're the missing piece.
Yeah, that does sound like something he would do. That'd be fucking bananas if the Raptors had like two rings and they were both just from like being like, all right, we get this one guy for 1 year, or I guess in Dame's case, like 2 years, and we're just like, we don't care if he's unhappy. We're just gonna do as best we can with him and everything. All right. So circling back, we touched on that trade aspect. I'll get back to the off season that Toronto had and the moves that they made, did anything jump out to you as like super notable? There's like a couple big ones that I have written down, but I'm sure they're probably on your list as well.
So with Toronto, I mean, I really think the big thing is just addition by subtraction potentially. Losing Fred Van Vliet hurts. He's a good player, but Masai has long tried to push for this interchangeable. Like, let's go with all these long switchable wings. And it's hard to do when you have Fred Van Vliet because he's too good to bench. But I would have no problem benching Schroeder. Like Schroeder, yeah, he won FIBA MVP. That's great. That's
He's
nice.
the best player on the planet. Oh my god.
God, him and Jokic are really gonna have to, arm wrestle for that title or something. I don't know who will win, but Schroeder can start or you can go to the bench. They have so many switchable wings. The Jalen McDaniels piece, he's not the better McDaniels brother. That's Jaden, but he still has a lot of the similar athletic, can shoot the ball, cuts well. You could do a switchable lineup with Pascal, OG, Barnes, Jalen, and then your pick of Trent, Porter, Young, Achua. Uh, maybe you need Grady Dick out there for spacing because they do not have 3-point shooters, but
Yeah.
lots of options. Also, Christian Koloko came on strong at the end. I think there's potential that he continues to develop.
Yeah, I don't know. Toronto is it. Fred Van Vliet always stuck out in Toronto to me because you watch the lineups that they run, especially against Denver, which that's where I'm watching them probably the most consistently is whenever they're playing against the Nuggets. And when they're playing against a guy like Jokic, they are rolling out those lineups where everybody's 6'9", especially I think there was like a big one where Scotty Barnes said something to the ref and got tossed this previous season where they had that whole lineup out there and it was giving Jokic fits. They pulled out the win, but just in terms of like how versatile those lineups get defensively, it's kind of hard for them to score. They
Hmm.
don't really have anybody to run like sharp offense when they benched Fred Van Vliet. But as far as like defense goes, it was so bizarre when you would see them try to run those lineups and then it would be like, all right, 6'8", 6'8", 6'9", 6'11", and then Fred Van Vliet is like pushing 6'1", if that.
Hmm.
And so it's just like, and I don't know. You said it. He is a good player. I'm not just gonna like rag all
Yeah.
over him, but in terms of like the biggest loss in the off season or anything like that, I don't really think losing Fred Van Vliet is the end of the world. Especially like he was not super efficient last season, under 40% from the field. Houston, I'm fine if like it's one thing to lose him and somebody like doesn't give him that much money, but for them to overpay in the way that they did, or just like give him as much money as they did, if you don't think they overpaid, I'm fine if I'm Toronto seeing Fred Van Vliet walk for that kind of money. And I think Schroeder, he's good. He's a fine replacement. You got worse at the position, but I think as far as like what they need, he can like kind of step in and supply that facilitator role while probably being a better defender than Fred Van Vliet. I don't know if it's like a super like I don't know. I don't love Schroeder defensively, but Fred Van Vliet is non-existent a lot of the times. I know he had that reputation earlier on where he was like very gritty and would get into guys' faces and like I don't know, change direction super quick. Had a good hands, but as time wore on, I kind of just like got disillusioned with Fred Van Vliet's defense, and so I don't mind them letting him walk to Houston in any capacity.
Yeah, Fred Van Vliet, he's really good in the passing lanes. I think he led the league in deflections either last year or 2 years ago. But like Schroeder will fight to get over screens a lot better. Ultimately, it's just you don't have to play Schroeder. You do have to play Fred Van Vliet, which if you're trying to do switchable, y it doesn't work as well. Like, if you look at the Raptors' most used lineups, it's Van Vliet, Pascal, Barnes, OG, and Trent. That's the small ball, that's switchable. That's actually negative on this last season. That's their most played lineup, has a negative point differential. You
Yeah.
take you take Van Vliet off the court, the most played lineup without Van Vliet, much smaller sample size. OG, Barnes, Pascal, Koloko, and Trent plus 27 points per 100 possessions.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that they are negative, it's surprising at first because I was like, whoa, I mean, that's a collection of pretty quality basketball players. But when I think about how much I would watch them and how routinely it would be like good switch that leads to them stopping penetration, good switch that leads to them getting a stop, good switch. And then it would find where Van Vliet was a lot of the
Mhm.
time. And God forbid that that's like, you've gotten so mixed up, he's on a bigger guy now. Because that's
Mhm.
just it's not like a James Harden situation where he can like hold his own in the post or whatever. If he's given up 8 inches, a full foot on whoever he's trying to guard, it's really difficult for him to I don't know, not stay in front of them, but to impact them vertically because he's not a big leaper, doesn't have big wingspan or anything like that. And so, yeah, as far as like that switchable defense that Toronto is kind of trying to make themselves known for, it seems like he
Yeah.
clashed with that so hard. But simultaneously, um, I understand when you luck into someone or when you hit on such a late draft pick or undrafted guy the way that Fred VanVleet was, it is hard to know when to move on from somebody like that when you go from undrafted to like, holy
Sure,
shit, this
sure.
guy is an all-star, all NBA level. And so I understand that it like took them this long, but as far as like raising your ceiling super high, Fred VanVleet doesn't really do that in my opinion.
Yeah. Now losing him definitely takes out the floor because now you don't have competent ball handling. There's a chance that their turnover issue, like they don't know what to do. They will just have bad turnover issues. I don't love Dennis being the guy that you have to rely on to initiate an offense. I'm not sure that I love Scotty Barnes for that either. And maybe it's Point Pascal.
Yeah.
That it's not a great option either.
No, yeah, I could see. Yeah, that is it's difficult because they all make the same kind of passes too. It's not
Hmm.
just that they all have like those high turnovers. It's that if you're asking one of them to initiate the offense, especially when you're talking about Barnes and Siakam, you are asking the other to kind of stand in a position that even the defense, even people watching on TV, they're like, all right, he's not the biggest threat in the world from the wing, just kind of like waiting to catch the ball and get into a triple threat stance or whatever, while the other guy drives to the basket and looks to make something happen in like a collapsed defense and kick situation. Uh, Siakam's a better shooter, and he has been like really good at points in his career for a guy his size, and maybe he can get back to that. I think his splits got up towards the like later half of last season, but as far if you're asking Siakam to run point and I don't know, Scotty, you're pretty much relegating him to like setting screens off the ball a lot of the time, it feels like, and then like looking to make something happen on a rebound to put back, something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, they really just don't have shooters as well. Like you said, Pascal got better last season or in the later half of the year, and that's true. But like on a whole, there's just not much shooting. Now that Van Vliet's gone, and not that Van Vliet was super helpful, but OG's the best shooter they had from last season, 38.7. Gary Trent's 36.9. Malachi Flynn, Otto Porter didn't really play a ton. Like then you're dropping all the way down to like Chris Boucher if you're looking for a guy that played. He's at 32.8. Like that's rough to be rolling out of lineups with Scotty at 28, with Pascal at 32. Like if you add a
Yeah.
big Podol or Coloco, you're limited. So I'm hoping Jalen McDaniels shoots closer to the 40% he shot in Philly than the sub 30 he shot wherever he was at earlier that season. Uh,
Yeah,
32.
it's just I don't know. Those three, when you talk about McDaniels and Trent specifically, and then Grady Dick, that was like his go-to skill as far as like everything I heard circulating around him in the draft was his shooting. But
Hmm.
specifically Gary Trent, I would love to see like a rebound year from him. It feels like he's been good for Toronto as far as I've like heard. He kind of explodes for a nice scoring game every now and again, and he's a quality defender and stuff like that. But when he really like burst onto the scene in Portland, he was spraying from downtown. And you could fact check me on this. I don't know if it's totally accurate, but I mean it feels like he was clear of 40% when he was in Portland before Toronto made a move for him. And it feels like if he could get back to that level, that that alleviates some of that pressure that Toronto is absolutely going to have. Because yeah, when you already have guys who are prone to making turnovers and then you allow the defense to really collapse in on that famous Siakam spin move or whatever it's going to be, that's going to be really difficult for them to routinely initiate good looks offensively if they don't have anybody who's even above like 36, 37% from three. And I mean, if Dick or Trent can become that, that would fucking rock. And if not, I'm not sure. They're going to have to be really good defensively to hit that
Yeah.
500 mark that I was talking about.
And my worry with Dick is just that he wasn't good defensively in college. He's not supposed to be good defensively. And so, if you give up Van Vliet and you replace him with Dick, sure, you've got better shooting, but you still have that guy that you can pick on defensively. And when he gets switched onto the ball, like you're going to go at him. So I don't know that he's the answer. I don't like relying on rookies to be the answer. Like I'm
No.
pro
Yeah.
young players, give them their minutes, get them out there, get them used to the league. But like, hey, don't expect them to be great.
They can't all be Christian Brown, Just because he's a Jayhawk doesn't mean he's pushing the team into the championship category right away.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about their new coach? Do you know anything about Darko Rajanovic?
No,
Rajanovic?
absolutely not. I was hoping you could educate me on that a little bit. How you feeling about him?
I have no clue. I am all right. So he was with OKC as an assistant coach back in 2015 and did like 6 years with OKC, then 1 year stop in Phoenix, then 3 year stops in Memphis. And it does kind of worry me when I see assistant coaches jumping around so much. Like I a lot of times you keep your assistant with you and then either you get fired and you take them with you or whatnot. So I'm like, were your head coaches just continuously fired? What's going on here? I know nothing about his style other than he is a disciple of the switchaball. He likes to play interchangeable style, so that does lead me to think that maybe Schroeder is not a full time starter. Maybe Podol's not a full time starter. Um, but rookie coach, young coach could lead into a tank pretty easily.
Yeah. I don't know. When I think about Toronto, I think they have kind of garnered this respect for the franchise and the front office in a very like off-brand Spurs-esque way because
Sure.
Masai is so savvy and has pulled off so many moves, and Nick Nurse was a really good coach and all that. And I mean, he's gone now, and I think this starts to be a test of that, like a very legitimate test. Obviously, losing Kawhi Leonard, you're not really going to be the same caliber of team, but they were still very competitive after that, and they continued making good moves that I saw them in the news, and I was like, well, I mean, that's a move that a smart team would make. But as far as like, I don't know, we don't know who this guy is. He has bounced around a lot, which you don't love. You would hope he would kind of really settle in with somebody at some point and kind of establish like an indispensable role for himself, which I don't know. It could also just be that guys are constantly getting fired, like you said. But
Yeah.
I think this is where we start to maybe lose a little bit of that glamour for the Toronto front office and how much, how savvy they are at making moves like this. Like, I don't know, maybe you just kind of lucked into a couple moves here and there. You made smart ones along the way. Don't get me wrong about that, but I don't know. This could be I could see this team tanking pretty easily if shit goes wrong for the first third of the season or whatever.
So I want to say that Aaron and I were discussing them yesterday. We're doing an Atlantic Division preview on the Hoopstemple pod, and um, there's this thought that teams don't really exist in the 32 to 38 win range, and there were 6 teams that landed there last year. But now, if you're gonna tank, you kind of got to tank early to get into that bottom 5, and if you're not, then you are going to play for the play-in. So we're probably going to see like teams either tank super early and cut it off. I don't think Toronto's going to do that. So I'm at least in favor of predicting them to get into that play-in range. Now it might be more 9-10, it might be more like 38 to 40 wins, than 41, 42, but I do think Toronto is going to go for it because they want to try to play this out.
Yeah, that leads into my third question for you pretty well, talking about the expectations for next season and like what a surprisingly nice season would look like versus a disappointing one. The one I have bulleted for a disappointing outcome is actually pretty much what you just described. I was like, if they keep this core together and they end up just scraping into the play-in tournament, I think I don't know. Now that you say it like as a very realistic occurrence, it might not be disappointing, but it would definitely say to me the Siakam era, all of this like trying to be competitive with these guys, it's probably just going to put you into like the Bulls category of like you have guys with name recognition and everything, but you're not even going to be a competitive like first round playoff matchup or anything like that. You might have good guys, but you don't really have a good team. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I think if they get into that 9-10 range and they don't blow it up, that I'd be like, okay, well, that's pretty concerning for me.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think that is actually the normal answer for this of them just sliding into the back half of the play-in is probably the most disappointing. If they decide, hey, we tried this experiment and it didn't work, which I do think they're going to try the experiment. They're going to try switch a ball, Jalen, Pascal, OG, Barnes, and then one of the other guys, Boucher, Achua, Koloko. They will play that lineup and they will try to give that lineup minutes to be switchable. If they play that and that only is ever going to be a 40-win team, if they stick with that and just win 40 games, that is a disappointment. If they get out there and they see this is a 40-win team and they're like, all right, cool, that's all this is. We're pulling the plug. Goodbye, Barnes for Lillard, or goodbye, Pascal for I don't even know who they would trade Pascal for, but if they end up saying goodbye and then they tank out and they get 30 wins, I think that is actually a better season of we tried this, it didn't work, now let's pivot. That would be a win for me.
Yeah. And it's pretty observant, you and Aaron. Teams don't exist in that range that would be like realistic for Toronto. And it's not a waste of a year to do that whole tank the final third of the season or whatever when you kind of face the music and recognize that the team's not going to be that good. But Utah did it last year where they
Hmm.
started the season really hot and they're like, we don't have a real star outside of Lowry, but we have a collection of guys who could be useful on a competitive team. And we're going to do our best to like outperform expectations. And they were the one seed for a while. Hello there. That's a cute cat.
This is
Um,
Giannis. He's my little baby.
that's a great name. Hello, Giannis. It's nice to meet you. Um, but yeah, and then Utah, they end up just selling the back half of the season last year. That only yields them the ninth or 10th pick,
Yeah.
whatever it was. And that for a year of no playoffs, very little player development because you spend so long trying to field as competitive a roster as possible in the first part of the season. It doesn't move your franchise in the direction you want all that much. And I mean, watching a weird lineup can be fun, but I don't know if that's like super worth it as a fan to watch stuff like that when you just end up with the ninth pick out of it all.
Yeah, I mean, if that lineup looks like, hey, it can continue, it can grow, it develop, become a 45 win, maybe one piece away, get you 50 wins, great. If you're looking at it and you're like, oh, we're struggling to hit 500, you need to blow it up. And I really hope that they don't do what Utah did, which is hang on to these guys too long, because like Utah got next to nothing and gave up some quality players there at the deadline. Like I know the Lakers didn't win, but getting Vanderbilt, and
Jared Vanderbilt is good at
yeah,
basketball. I wanted
yeah,
Denver to go get him. I was like, dude, it takes pennies to pick this guy up. If I get that he's not good on offense, Jokic could probably alleviate a lot of that. Go get it. And obviously, LA doesn't really have the same kind of player in terms of like if you can cut, you can play on offense around this guy. But Vanderbilt's good, and I mean, they still have I think Olenek is a guy that a competitive team would move something for, and they just have a variety of guys like that where I'm just like, you're not going to be good. You're not going to try to be good. What is with the roster construction here? Like, you don't need these guys anymore. I think Detroit with Bogdanovich is in a very similar situation as well, where he averaged like 22 on 50, 40, 90. They hold him for the whole season and win like 15 games. What are you doing? So, yeah, I don't know. I think Siakam, if they do decide to blow it up, I feel like Atlanta first rounders are going to be one of the most valuable things in the sport in a couple of years. So if they could ship Siakam off there and just get him there, and then they have like Atlanta's 2028 or whatever just sitting in their back pocket while they're developing their own guys. I
You're
think,
selling stock on Trae Young.
well, I just think Trae Young's going to be gone. I don't know.
Interesting.
He doesn't feel like he gets the respect he deserves in Atlanta. And I think he's definitely a guy who's tapped into discussions like that. And I could see him being like, you know what, fuck it. Nobody thinks I'm good anyways. Let me get to a team where I can really like make a postseason run or whatever. And I know everybody shits on him for his defense. He does have flaws, but Trae Young's good, and I don't know. Just doesn't feel. He seems very underrated right now, and it seems like Atlanta is in a precarious situation as far as moving forward with both him and DeJounte goes.
I have long been a Trae Young hater. I do not want a Pascal for Trae Young move. I don't think that's what you're suggesting. I also don't think that Atlanta would do that because why would you get Pascal if you're getting rid of Trae? But like I am with you. I do think Trae, the hate has gotten a little bit too bad. Like he does some things well. He is still a good scorer and good passer. I wish that the Hawks offense was more than 1 to 2 passes each time, including the inbounds. Because like you watch them play,
That's so funny, including
just
the inbounds. Yeah.
do the counter, watch them play, and be like, all right, inbounds pass. Trae Young dribbles up the court. He gets a pick and roll. Up, he shot. There was one pass on this possession, and it was the inbounds.
Yep.
And if it's not that, he passes, and that guy immediately shoots, unless it's Bogdanovich. If you get Bogdan, he'll make the swing pass, and then that guy will immediately shoot. There's like a max of 3 passes in any Hawks possession.
I'm dead. And yeah, I don't know. That sucks. I know this is the Raptors podcast, but you got him, you got DeJounte, you got Bogdanovich. You have guys that seem like uh, intelligent basketball players as far as assist totals go. So you would think the ball movement there would be a little bit better, but really, I don't know. That Murray trade has not panned out the way that I thought it would at the beginning. What
I
rocks this postseason is DeJounte Murray. When you Google Murray stats for a while there, DeJounte Murray would come up when Jamal was injured. And now that the Nuggets are the champs,
You've
it's
taken over
Jamal
the
Murray.
Murray.
Yeah, you're taking over the Murray Google searches. So take that, DeJounte.
Well, if Aaron was here, he would have to say, "What about Keegan Murray?" Because he's going to take over that in a few years.
Hell yeah, dude. That's so funny that you're repping him even when he's gone. Absolutely. And I fuck with Keegan Murray. He was nice in the summer league. He was really shooting well. And so, I don't know. He'll be good for the Kings. The Kings are going to be good, but that is for another podcast.
Yes, sir.
Getting back to, we already touched on this with the Damian Lillard thing a little bit, but there's more to talk about here. Is there a midseason trade you want or expect Toronto to make?
You know, we did our Atlantic Division preview, and we just kind of we discussed Sun Kinging. I use it as a verb, but did you ever watch Game of Zones? The old
Oh,
Sun
yeah.
Kings. Let's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
combine 2 franchises. And we were like, man, if we could Sun Kings, the Nets and the Raptors, the Nets have like a lot of good guards, and wings. The Raptors have good wings and bigs, but like the Raptors are set 3 through 5, and the Nets are set like 3 through 1. Could we flip a Precious Achua or a Christian Koloko or a Jacob Podol, someone to Brooklyn, and maybe bring back Cam Thomas if they're not going to play Cam Thomas, or
He's
just
wasting away over there. What are we doing, Brooklyn? Come on.
yeah, something little. If they decide they're not going to go the full blow it up route, and they decide that the switch of ball is not perfect, is not going to work, and they need a guard, I think there's some good guards to be pilfered off of Brooklyn's bench. Dennis Smith Jr. was an awesome defensive player last year. Get him in there, and Yeah, offense is still not going to be great, but
If the
hey,
offense is going to suck anyways, you might as well get good defenders, you know?
yeah, can there be a team that holds the rest of the league to 80 points per game? I don't think so, but let's fucking try it. Why not?
Let's do it. Let's have fun. Exactly. Damn, that's so funny. 80 points per game. It's hilarious that that's like an unreasonably low number these days and all that. Offense is so fucking ridiculous nowadays, but I don't know. It's entertaining, I guess. I have a question. What what do you feel like is a fair return for OG Anunoby? Do you think Toronto is completely reasonable in like the 3 first rounders and a nice young piece for him or something like that? Because he rocks. Great prototypical like filler guy. As far as like if you're a competitive team, you could add one rotational player. It might be OG Anunoby for a lot of separate franchises, but his name always comes up towards the deadline, and it's always like they are asking way too fucking much for him to get moved. It's not happening. So how do you feel about OG?
I mean, I'd love to get 3 first round picks and a young guy. And if you wanted to throw in a top 100 player or of all time, let's what are we even doing? What are we asking for here? Like, you're who has this? Who has
It's
these
just the
picks and young
Thunder. It's
players?
pretty much just the Oklahoma City Thunder that has this to play around with. And
Does OKC want to give up that much for him? I don't see why they would.
no, absolutely not.
You
Yeah.
know, hey, all right, let- let's say Giannis or Joel Embiid demands a trade and the Thunder go all in with their picks package to get him, and then they still have some picks left over. Cool. Now that's like a bridge piece. But with wing Jalen Williams, you already have a guy that can be your defensive wing stopper. Like, I don't know where this market is for OG. I think 2 picks would be good. I think getting, if you decide you want to go on Scotty Barnes's timeline, getting someone young that's like in that comparison timeline, like say the Pistons don't love the Jaden Ivey Cade Cunningham pairing, and they're like, all right, let's move off of Ivy. Could we get Ivy for OG? Like,
That seems reasonable.
yeah,
That's what I'm talking about. It's just like I'm with you. It feels like everybody, not just the Raptors, but everyone saw stuff like the Gobert trade and is like, well, that's the market for shit now. That's the going price. And that was very clearly an overpay. And so
hmm
now it's just like, it's like basketball inflation. OG Anunoby is good. And it's kind of like Fred VanVleet, where you took him a little bit lower and you're like, oh shit, this guy's very talented basketball player. But like, yeah, in terms of, and it sucks because I really want to see him get a fresh start somewhere. And I also want to see Toronto get the value that I know he is, which is still a very valuable trade piece, especially if you can get him to a team that's like, we're close, we are desperate to get over the hump. We might overpay a little bit for him. But like setting the opening line at 3 firsts and being like, we're not budging here, there's no room for negotiation, that that's why he's still in Toronto, because it feels like it's been going on for I don't know 2+ years at this point, and it kind of stinks.
yeah. All right, so I went and pulled up the Murray trade because Murray was supposed to be 3 first round picks for Murray, who was a one
Mm-hmm.
time All Star at the time, same age, 25 years old. What was that year? Like 25, 7-7, some insane numbers.
Yeah, he
Oh
was
no,
cooking. It might be 21,
it was
7.
21, 9, and 8 with 2 steals, leading the league in steals.
Damn, yeah, he was nice at San Antonio. Shit.
And one of those picks was protected and then became a pick swap. So you're looking at 2 first round picks and 1 swap for that. What do you mean you want 3 and a first round pick? Like, I'm used to Lakers fan boards, which is like, oh, hey, who can we get for just garbage? And like all of these mock trades where it's like, oh, I guess we can trade D'Angelo Russell. Maybe Dallas will give us Luka Doncic for him. No, just but
Yeah.
like this is equally as ludicrous.
Absolutely. And what's worse is it's like it's not a Lakers board. It's your front office. Like these are professionals, and I don't know. They're smarter than I am in a lot of ways, pretty much every way when it comes to basketball. But sometimes you get so far into it, maybe you can't like see what's really
Yeah.
going on, the reality of the situation, and like what the market for him is. But yeah, it feels like if this is the season where things kind of come to a head in Toronto, to me, OG Anunoby is firmly in the Pascal Siakam era of guys who would probably get shipped out for assets. And so, if they do decide to blow it up, then I think that's probably what's going to happen with him. But it would be interesting. He at 25 is a weird age in the
Hmm.
NBA where you could like argue that he's a young guy who, by the time Scotty Barnes and whoever you tank to draft, kind of hit their prime, OG will still be able to contribute in a meaningful way. But I don't know. Feels like he would get shipped out to me if they blew it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he could fit some teams that are trying to do two timelines. Although to think if you traded him to Golden State for Kaminga and Moody, which I think that would actually be a fair trade. I wouldn't hate that for either side. Um, Golden State no longer has two timelines, but like that that works. That makes sense. He could contribute right now and help out Curry's timeline, and then still be there for the Wiggins era.
That could be that would the Wiggins era. That would be I like that in terms of they could roll out some weird fucking lineups with Draymond, Wiggins, and OG, and then just like kind of it's not switchable because you're probably gonna have Steph and Clay out there, and Clay can't move side to side, and Steph's 6'2", but like it would be
It's
fun, and they could
it's
do
close to the
interesting stuff.
original Death lineup with with
Iguodala,
Harrison Barnes, Iggy. Yeah, like I mean, it's three really good versatile defenders, and then Clay and Steph.
yeah, damn. Golden State's weird. I don't really like what they've done in terms of like Chris Paul. As far as if they're starting Chris Paul, I think that's pretty gnarly, and I don't think that's going to last very long. But then also picking up Dwight Howard, it just feels like they're throwing everything at the
Wait,
wall.
did they actually sign him?
I don't know. I saw a like I don't know, one of those Twitter accounts. It's like, could you imagine this pick and roll? And it was them photoshopped into jerseys together, Chris Paul and Dwight Howard and all that. I don't know if he's officially signed, but the rumors have been swirling pretty heavy. So I don't know. Maybe it'll happen. They could use a little bit more size. Kevon Looney's trying his darndest, but if he gets into foul trouble, it gets weird for them pretty quickly as far as depth goes.
Dario time. Dario's going to be the man.
Hell yeah. Damn, I haven't heard that name in years, Dario Saric. I thought he was legit as a rookie in Philadelphia. I thought he was really going to be him.
He was. He had a stretch where Zach Lowe was championing his sixth man of the year case, and then just a couple of seasons of injuries. I believe he's fully recovered, and I want to say that he was in the qualifier for the Olympics with Croatia last year, and was looking
Hmm.
pretty nice.
Damn. Well, he's not. He can't be that old. I hope. I don't know. A renaissance is kind of what always seems to happen when Golden State picks up guys like that. So if it works out for Dario Saric, that's not the end of the world. I like him. He's nice. All right. That's pretty much all I have for like trades. Which player are you most looking forward to seeing progress next season for the Toronto Raptors?
I mean, the obvious answer should just be Scotty Barnes. If he doesn't progress, it's a disaster. Uh, but I think I kind of want to go with more Christian Coloco. Just a big athletic player, lots of energy, can really hustle. And a lot of times these guys wash out of the league super quickly because it's like, oh, cool, you can run and jump and dunk. Great. Like, what else do you bring? And I want to see if that progresses to be anything else. How is his timing in defensively? Can we get him up to the 25 minutes a night thing? What else can he bring? That's who I'm really hoping to see stuff from.
Yeah, I'm not big. I'm not tapped into the Coloco train just yet. I'll have to look him up after this, but I don't know. There are a lot of athletic, long guys who can jump really high in the league, and you're right. They don't ever seem to stick around that long without developing an additional skill. So hopefully he
Yeah.
breaks that mold this upcoming season. For me, I wrote down it can only be Scotty Barnes as my answer to this question.
It pretty much only can be.
Like Grady Dick, fun. He's going to be the number one jersey in like fraternities around the country, no question. Good contender for White Boy of the Year next season. But as far as like impact to a winning team goes, if Scotty takes that step into 18 points per game territory or whatever, or really bumps his efficiency up on the same scoring volume, maybe starts hitting a little bit more from outside, maybe starts taking care of the ball more in a point guard-ish role, things like that, that is the kind of development that would allow Toronto to ride it out this year and then be like, all right, it's the off season. How committed are we to this idea? If he's bad immediately and doesn't really, I don't know. If he has Siakam started poorly last year, if Barnes does that this year, I could see that leading to Toronto being like, all right, we're blowing it up. This is it. It's been fun.
Yeah, Barnes needs to come out with a 37% 3-point shot. If it's not that high, like if it's still just at 35, I'm like, I'm sorry, we kind of need to figure something else out. Like the shooting cannot remain that low.
Yeah, it's tricky because I don't know, 35 borders on that, like you can't leave them open line, but Scotty's is a pretty deceptive 35. I didn't even realize it was that high. Based off the eye test, I would have
Oh,
shot at like,
it's not. It's much below that. But I'm
I
saying
was
like,
gonna say, I was like, damn, this motherfucker shot 35. I was gonna guess like 29 or something like that, just from he's constantly wide open if he's not within like the restricted area or something like that.
yeah, it was 28 last year. So maybe 35 is enough of an improvement that I could be happy with that. But it's just like, okay, 37%. There were 87 guys last year that shot 37% or better. Like, I kind of need you to be better than just a fringe top 100 shooter if I'm going to build my franchise around you and
Yeah,
trust that. Like, 35%, that's DeAndre Hunter. Are you staying out on DeAndre Hunter, on Andrew Nemhard, on Nikola Vucevic, PJ Washington? Like, I need you to be better than that.
yeah, it's difficult. That's one player where I'm like, it would rock if he developed that. Like, if you could give anybody in the league that's not already an all-star caliber guy a 37% three-point jumper, Scotty Barnes would be one of the better players.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a very, I don't know, that would revolutionize his game in a way that's kind of unrealistic to expect, it feels like. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It might take a few years, but hey, if it's gonna take a few years, let's send him to Portland and see how
yeah,
we can look with Dame.
it's a
I'm
lot
into this
easier.
rent a star idea. Like, hey, who wants to live? Who wants to do their whole career in Toronto? DeMar DeRozan? Not many other people want to spend their whole career there. So all right, we just rent a guy, a couple of years, got some good pieces around him. Let's try to get a championship, and then we can let him go on elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be so, I don't know, between Kawhi wanting LA and getting Toronto and Dame wanting Miami and getting Toronto, it's just like these places could not be further apart in terms of like climate or just livability, whatever. If you like the cold, I don't know. Serge Ibaka seemed to really enjoy it there, but I don't know if Dame is looking for that kind of climate right now.
Yeah, well, they let Serge have his cooking show where he like cooked bull's eyes and other like really traditional African and dishes, like native
Uh
of
huh.
like old school African dishes. Like it was a cool cooking show to watch on YouTube for a bit.
I
Um
caught a couple episodes of it where he would feed it to his teammates and stuff like that.
yeah, and they'd freak out and he'd be like, "No, this is really good." And it's like, yeah, our Western sensibilities, we don't cook that all that much. Like, I mean, I grew up eating cow tongue. It's just like
Yeah,
something in my family that we do. And like my friends would always freak out. And so I really loved him, like just grossing out his teammates. And
yeah.
Toronto's got culture.
It does. It's a very international city.
Yeah.
So that rocks. Yeah. Like I said, Toronto is a nice place from what I can tell. I've never been, but I would love to make it out there sometime. But I don't think that's where Damian Lillard really wants to end up. So him and Kawhi both getting shipped there would make me laugh.
Yeah.
I don't really have any other young players to touch on. So the last question I got for you today is what team do you think is going to win the NBA title? We're pretty far out, and the playing field is relatively even. So I'm not going to hold you to this if you end up being wrong or anything like that. I could easily be wrong just as well, and we might even have the same answer. So what are you feeling?
Well, we had you on the pod a while back to predict our offseason or like our title odds.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we had the same highest team, which was the Denver Nuggets.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We had the Nuggets at like a cool. I don't know
It's
if it
like,
was above 50. It must have. It was probably
oh
closer to
no,
like, yeah,
it was like
30 or 40.
20% chance. Yeah.
Oh shit. I'm firmer on them now than I was, given all of the stuff around I don't know, Giannis's recent quotes of if there's a better spot for me to win or something like that, which I don't know if that's going to impact this upcoming season, but it definitely made it onto my radar. And then I think the Warriors probably got worse since we did that, and I've kind of, I don't know, eased off of the Lakers additions and everything. I would probably crank my Nuggets repeat odds up a little bit more. They wouldn't be close to the majority of what I'm feeling. I wouldn't give them 50% of all of the teams in the league the way that we
Hmm.
did, but I'm a tentative Nuggets repeat right now.
Yeah, they definitely like. I mean, what you've got maybe 8 teams that are realistic contenders this year. Maybe nine if Miami gets it, because like Denver, LA, Phoenix, Golden State, Milwaukee, Boston, Miami. That's seven off the dome here. So like, you start dividing up 100%. Like 20 to 25, even 30% for Denver is huge. It's not the like
Yeah.
overwhelming favorite, but it is a pretty solid uh, position. And like I'm a Lakers fan and I like a lot of the Lakers additions. Um I think we got great bargains. The deals was that we got for Reeves was really nice. The Vanderbilt contract's really nice. But ultimately like that's the bus's money. I don't care that they got a great savings. That doesn't make Vanderbilt get a jump shot. Like
Yeah.
great, you saved money. Getting Christian Wood at the minimum, awesome. I like the fact that he could play really nice offense next to AD's defense. But if AD and LeBron aren't healthy, this team's not going anywhere. It's going to be the same as when we had Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell. And so, like, am I willing to bet a ton of money on LeBron and AD's health? No, absolutely not.
Yeah. It's hard when it's what I think it's like 6 straight healthy weeks you need out of whatever team you are to win the title. You need to be healthy for 6 straight weeks or not miss an extended period. You can miss a game or two in there, but it is difficult when you say it out loud in that capacity to be like, okay, LeBron and AD are both going to hold up for that long, given how, I mean, they didn't even really do it this season, and they only made
Hmm.
it to 4 games into the Western Conference Finals. I think a step forward if Reeves really becomes like what it seems like he can be offensively and is really capable of taking a load off of LeBron and even allowing LeBron to rest more games while giving the Lakers wins or the chance to win on any given night. I think that will be very impactful because it will allow LeBron to focus on entering the playoffs healthy and stuff like that, which is the big question, like you said. And I think it is impressive that the Lakers got the roster here after the Westbrook trade. It was so ugly post that, and now they've really gotten into a nice spot. But yeah, like you said, just because they're getting really good value, that doesn't automatically make it like a really good basketball player that they have on the roster now.
Hmm.
So yeah, I
I also
think
just I just never trust them to like have learned lessons. Like in our last pod, I threw out the suggestion of the Rui and the D'Lo contracts match up with Kyrie, they also match up with James Harden, who wants out and wants to come to LA and is an LA guy. Like, do I really trust the Lakers to say, no, we're not going to trade depth and quality for a former star that's past his prime? No, no, I fully don't trust them to not do that.
I hadn't even considered that. That would be hilarious, is to be like, fuck, we just sent out two good role players and a bunch of shit for Westbrook, who's cooked. And we just got back. We made it back from that. And oh my God, a cooked guard. Let's pick him up, please. Damn. And he does so much shit that LeBron does. That would be pretty tough. I don't think they'll do that. I'll be confident for you. I think they're a little bit smarter than that, and they probably learned their lesson as far as completely giving up all your assets and what a tough spot it puts you in. But who knows? Maybe they're really dumb.
Yeah, it's the Lakers way. We want stars. It's how we've operated for years. Let's get stars, let's get names, let's get controversial figures. They were in talks to get Miles Bridges at different points last year, and I'm glad we dodged that bullet, but I have zero faith.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would make me so mad. If the Lakers picked up Miles Bridges, we're going off in the Western Conference Finals again, and he's like, because I don't know. To me, when the Lakers pick somebody up, it does tend their percentages either plummet or get really good. And the way
Sure.
Rui was just burying mid ranges against the Nuggets last year, I could see Miles Bridges just lighting us up from three or some shit like that. And I have to just like look at this villain and be like, is this really why I'm losing this fucking series? But whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like what the Lakers did. I think they're in contention. But like I said, tentative Denver repeat is my story so far this offseason.
I think they've got to be the favorites. I mean, they returned basically every key player except for Bruce Brown, which I do think is going to hurt, but you know, Brown did the little things. They can find another guy to do the little things. Hopefully, you guys don't have to play Reggie Jackson too much. That could be a rough time
Oh
for
my
you.
God. Yeah. That's, I don't know. I'll do the Nuggets episode later. There's some stuff I'm hoping for in terms of like Tyus Jones is in Washington, and he's not really like a guard you would expect to stick around on a bad team super long. Monte Morris is in Detroit, very similar situation.
Mm,
As far as backup point guards go, I don't really like Reggie Jackson that much, and if it does come to us playing him a big role, I definitely could see that. Like if he had to step into the Bruce Brown role in any capacity, that completely changes the dynamic of our team. Thankfully, Christian Brown, that was a really good developmental year for him last year, and I think he'll be able to do a lot of similar stuff that Bruce Brown did. But yeah, I mean it sucks, but good for him. He got a bag that he's deserved for since he was in Brooklyn. I was surprised we got him on that 1 year contract for like 6 mil, and yeah, he helped us win a championship. Now he's got a ton of money. Good for Bruce.
yep, that's how it should be.
Absolutely. All right. That's really all I got for you today. This has been super fun. Is there anything you want to plug while you have the platform here?
Yeah, just the Hoops Temple podcast. Listen, I know I'm on TikTok, Nate underscore Hoops Temple. I'm not a TikToker. I am a podcaster. I give me the chance to talk long form. Give me a chance to debate with another live human. It's a much better medium. I know you're the TikTok guy, but like podcast. I'm so happy to see you make this change, and I'm so happy to listen to these.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for the support. I like the long form. My brain operated in short form for a very long time. Making the switch was not the easiest thing in the world, but I'm happy that I'm doing it as well. And I'm looking forward to continually doing these and probably even having you back on in the future, Nate.
Perfect. Well, looking forward to chatting with you again.
All right. Thank you for everyone who is listening. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.